Once you've beaten the Moonlord in Terraria, watch my guide, you've beaten the final boss in the game, and now you have access to the best armor and weapons. I'm gonna go over the endgame gear for melee players, so let's jump right into it. The best melee armor in the game is Solar Flare armor, crafted with solar fragments and luminite bars. This requires a total of 45 fragments and 144 luminite, and these are actually the same requirements for all the endgame armor sets. Solar Flare armor gives you a base 78 defense, 17% increased melee critical hit chance, 22% increased melee damage, and 15% increased movement and melee speed. It also increases the chance that enemies will target you, but this is only really impactful when you're actually playing with other people. Wearing the full set also gives your player a shield that charges as you avoid taking damage. The shield provides a 30% damage reduction at all levels. Similar to the Beetle armor's Beetles, the shield has 3 levels that take 5 seconds to charge each, adding 2 spikes on the shield with the second charge and 3 spikes on the final charge. When you take damage, an explosion will trigger on the player that damages enemies, and will use up one of the charges. The shield also allows you to dash, and dashing into enemies damages them, doing the same explosion when you take damage, but it seems to hit the enemy more times, and if you dash through an enemy or kill it instantly, you won't take any damage. Dashing also doesn't use up a charge unless you hit an enemy, so you pretty much constantly have this dashing ability available if you aren't in combat. The armor also emits light for each piece you have equipped, and having the full set equipped gives you this pulsating after image sort of effect. Kinda wish this effect happened with each piece separately, but I guess I can live without it. The best melee weapons are the Solar Eruption, Terrarian, Star Wrath, and the MEOWMERE. The Solar Eruption is one of my favorite weapons in the game, piercing all blocks and enemies while blowing up every enemy it touches. It's crafted with 18 solar fragments and an ancient manipulator. It does 105 melee damage and inflicts the Day Broken debuff, dealing 25 damage every second. It's really useful against hordes of enemies or worm enemies, and especially the Moonlord, because of its wall piercing ability, allowing you to attack him while behind cover. The best modifier is Godly. The Terrarian is a yo-yo that drops from the Moonlord. It spawns little projectiles that home in on enemies and do the same damage as the actual yo-yo. The projectiles actually infinitely pierce enemies, so it's amazingly useful against pretty much every enemy and boss in the game. The Terrarian has a base melee damage of 190. It deals a crazy amount of damage on its own, but with a yo-yo bag, it becomes absolutely insane, dealing the highest damage per second of any melee weapon. The only drawback is that the yo-yo and projectiles have no block piercing, meaning you're limited to the terrain around you, but this isn't really that much of an issue. The best modifier is Godly. The Star Wrath is another drop from the Moonlord, a sword that launches 3 pink stars to wherever your cursor is. It's pretty much just an upgraded Star Fury. The sword does a base damage of 110, but the projectiles, which will pretty much be your main source of damage, do 220 damage each. The stars can pierce through blocks till they're about 10 blocks above your head. At that point, they'll dissipate when they come in contact with the next block. The stars also move faster the higher your melee speed, and the best modifier for this weapon is Legendary. Finally, the MEOWMERE, another drop from the Moonlord. This ferocious feline blade launches little Nyan cats with every swing that pierce through enemies and deal a base damage of 200. The cats bounce 4 times and dissipate on the 5th. They also seem to speed up after every bounce, and the weapon damage increases over time from 200 to 244. Not gonna lie, this weapon can be kind of annoying, not because of how it performs, but because of how it sounds. Yeah, I'm not gonna say you can go into your game folder, maybe delete a few sound files, maybe ones relating to the sound the cats make. That's what I would say if I didn't have to take responsibility for when you break your game. The best modifier for this weapon is Legendary. There are some other useful weapons, but I don't find them totally necessary to carry with you. But if you want to, I can't stop you. Vampire knives are received from the Crimson Chest in the dungeon. They are little infinite daggers you throw that regen you health for the damage you do. Approximately 7.5% of the damage you do will be returned to you as health. So dealing 50 damage will return to you 4 health, since it rounds up. This weapon is nice to quickly regenerate some health, but with solar armor and the other weapons at your disposal, the chance you'll be that desperate for health is pretty damn low. You might be also wondering about the Daybreak, the counterpart to the Solar Eruption. While this is an effective weapon and has the ability to stack the Daybroken debuff, in practice it can barely out DPS single targets compared to the Solar Eruption, and definitely when compared to any of the Moonlord's weapons. It also lacks any sort of piercing ability. Fighting the Destroyer with the Daybreak is like fighting it with toothpicks. And when you compare that to the Solar Eruption, it's not even a contest. I think if they want the Daybreak to be on par with the Solar Eruption, or at least closer, something needs to change. My suggestion is that every time a spear impacts an enemy, an area of effect explosion should occur. The same type of explosion the Solar Eruption causes. This wouldn't just make the weapon stronger, but it would also feel a lot stronger and more satisfying to use. Because at the moment, the Solar Eruption feels way stronger in every way, and mostly just because of the constant explosions going off in the enemy's faces. You can also use flasks to boost your damage output, like a flask of E-Core, which will cause you to do 10 more damage per hit when you inflict the E-Core debuff, or a flask of Cursed Flames, which will take 6 life per second when you inflict an enemy with the Cursed Inferno debuff. Accessories also play a major role in your character's abilities. Accessories can and usually are swapped out, depending on what you're doing. Sometimes you might want to completely max out your damage.
I'm going to cut you.
Other times you want to be able to move around a little easier.
I don't think you have any idea how fast I really am.
Or you might just not want to ever die, ever.
That tickled.
So I'll show you a bunch of great ones and you can decide what you want to use. To match the solar armor, I gotta recommend the solar wings. These endgame wings allow you to fly up faster and longer than any other wings in the game, besides the Stardust wings, which have the same stats. They're crafted with 14 solar fragments and 10 luminite bars. Frostbark boots or power boots are nice to have no matter what class you are. Having a movement speed increase and the ability to run super fast is pretty nice. They're available a lot earlier in the game by combining an Aglet, Inklet of the Wind, and Spectre boots to make power boots, and then combining power boots with ice skates to make Frostbark boots. I also recommend an Ink Shield, of course for the knockback resistance, because knockback is terrible, and once you get used to not having it, being knocked back is the worst. The Celestial Shell is one of the most widely beneficial accessories in the game, especially for melee players. It boosts melee speed, all types of damage, critical strike chance, life regeneration, defense, mining speed, minion knockback, and it allows you to breathe and swim underwater, and turns you into a freaking fish monster. It also turns you into a werewolf at night, giving you even more boosts. If you're looking to increase your damage, using a warrior emblem, destroyer emblem, fire gauntlet, mechanical glove, and Avenger's emblem, or yo-yo bag if you're using a yo-yo. These all give a nice melee damage boost, and reforging these all to menacing and using them at the same time, you'll pretty much have the highest possible melee DPS. This will push some of your melee weapons to upwards of 400 damage. You can pretty much farm all the bosses without moving and kill them pretty dang quick. That's really nice too, because without wings or boots, you pretty much can't move anyway. If you prefer to be more of a tank and become a god who feels no pain, equipping an Ink Shield, Celestial Shell, Flesh Knuckles, a Paladin Shield, and a Frozen Turtle Shell, and then reforging them all to warding, can boost your defense of upwards to 120. If you're on Expert, add in a Worm Scarf, and you'll pretty much be this guy.
Who threw that piece of paper at me?
And that'll do it for Terraria's endgame melee gear. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know your favorite weapons or setups in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe to make me feel nice and warm and fuzzy on the inside. Take care, everybody.